So good afternoon, everyone. We run our TMT business here for Virtusa, large-scale system integrator focusing on cloud and digital transformation. And as Ron mentioned, we specialize in media, have helped many media clients across broadcasting, advertising, music publishing, and education really modernize their application and data assets. And look forward to sharing some thoughts on media today. Ron, we can move to the first slide. Great. And you can build it out there. So really there's three main forces today we see, at the root of the disruption. On one hand, it's, what I'll call consumer expectations and behaviors and the changing face of their, consumption habits, driven largely by demographics and, a lot of millennials cutting the cord from cable to OTT providers and streamers and just a whole, how they're consuming through the various channels. The second area we see is around technology disruption, and there's a lot of technology, but there's two in particular that Surajit will talk about, which is really the proliferation of 5G and how that will change and handle the way content is distributed in the future and how it's consumed. And second, AI is really changing the way content is being created, it's being analyzed and really personalized through recommendations. So we'll dive into that. And the last area we see is really around what I call ecosystem changes. And this really is in three parts around the content creation, where content has really been federated and distributed, and social platforms now are real-time distribution networks for content and audience engagement. And then the larger platform players, streamers, are now very much in the content game. And I think the whole role of, content influencer, marketing influencers are now becoming prevalent, which is really changing just that whole ecosystem around creation and distribution. So these are the three primary topics we'll cover today. Thank you. Ron, we can move to the next slide. So if we think about consumption collectively in 2021, overall media consumption in the U.S. from an adult's perspective increased 20%, since over the last decade. And what's interesting about this is it's still, if you look at the global population, it's still slightly under 5 billion of internet users out of the 8 billion, 7.9 billion of global population. So the digital reach is still not completely all-encompassing. But the trends we're seeing now, Americans spending 90+% of their portion of their day through social media, making it really the country's most popular medium now for news, for content. And you're seeing the demographic side of this affect usage, or older generations doing things like Facebook, Gen Z generations now doing more TikTok type of interaction. And so these behavioral changes will continue to affect how media companies will create, distribute, and really monetize their content assets. And I expect we'll continue to see an acceleration of these channels. Ron, we can move to the next slide. So if you look at where these channels are moving, clearly mobile has become the number one medium over the past 10 years. And I don't think that implies that the TV is dead. It may be dead from a linear perspective, but it's still getting more connected. You're seeing the emergence of connected TV, and the advertising now will begin to shift from mobile to CTV advertising. And even last year, during this year, we saw about a 48% increase in CTV advertising. So clearly, the channels and the viewership is starting to move, in some ways back to the TV, just from a connected TV perspective. And I think as you look at consumption here by demographic, again, you're seeing significant differences as the print and non-digital media sources will continue to erode as the younger generation continues to come in. And lastly, I would say video content continues to be at a rapid rise. Through the social channels, YouTube, things like TikTok are now the primary, way folks are consuming their content. Next slide, Ron. So competition is fierce, right? So you continue to see different channels of content being produced. Information overload is not a new concept, but I think we're all saturated. We're all routinely scrolling through our social feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, trying to figure out some nuggets of information. And I think it's not so much just that it's overloaded, but the consuming of information is negatively impacting our judgment and our sentiment, if you will. So there's been several, research models that have shown that this inability to really, interpret and digest information leads to a lot of negative, sentiment. I think we can see how that's been affecting just society here. So, I think there's a lot of focus now on how do you, better combat this. And I think on the consumer side, there has to be a move really to simplification, choosing fewer avenues, fewer sources, and making sure that those are reputable sources. And I think on the broadcast side, I think successful media outlets will now move more locally, deliver more local, up-to-the-minute updates, and really personalize that narrative for more localized news. I think moving from just announcing the news and the data, but providing more insights really to distill information into more digestible bites will be important for broadcasters. So instead of just understanding what the weather is for tomorrow, drawing the conclusion about how much they'll have to run their air conditioner over the next few days, or how much will they have to spend shoveling their driveway, translating these to more behavioral, action-oriented news casting and just delivering the news. So I think the relevancy into people's daily lives will become very, very critical for broadcasters to compete. Next slide, Ron. So everyone now is a content creator. Content has really been democratized. Anyone with a smartphone is really a broadcaster and a news distributor. News now has really moved to the point of occurrence. And if you think about the volume out there, I don't think anybody can, who's now the consumer, right? If everyone's a creator, I didn't get a chance to look at 3.2 million photos on Instagram in the last hour. I don't know about you guys. So you can kind of see how this, just saturation is really affecting society. On the positive side, it's micro-programming, it's more personalized content, maybe more unbiased in some cases and unfiltered. But on the negative side, we need to figure out how to control the quality and the accuracy and just build trust. A lot of these social channels still don't have, trust of information sources. So, and I think that'll be important for news outlets to really focus on the quality, accuracy, and trust side. And second, I would say, is really the power of influencers, right? Influencer marketing roles are on the rise. It's always been about the audience, but now audiences mean followers. So, monetizing your followers is never been easier. And if you think about, if you're a media outlet trying to market a movie, is it easier to market it through an actor's channel that may not have as much followers, or somebody on YouTube who's got 10 million followers? I think the marketing is now following the audience, and you're seeing a lot of investment go into this, what I call creator influencer economy, Platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat have all announced their own versions of what I call creator funds, really to design, to help develop and attract some of the internet's most creative talent to really create these influencers and brand advocates out there. And thirdly, is really on the OTT side now. The OTT players are very much in the content creation game. Netflix, spent about $13+ billion in content in 2021, up 26%. Disney, 25 billion, Warner, 20 billion, Amazon over 10 billion. So there's a lot of investment now going into that, content and studio side. And I predict you'll start to see better cooperation and collaboration between streamers. I think you saw earlier this week, even Google, YouTube, and Roku resolving their long debated anti-competitive dispute. So I think their streamers are also understanding that there's a little bit of fatigue also setting in through the disaggregation of OTT players, and then be needs for aggregation and needs for collaboration, I think, in the future. Next slide, Ron. So what is the future? Is it next slide, Ron, if you can? Yeah, thank you. So what is the future? Is the metaverse really the future of the internet? I think there's this has been the year of the metaverse, right? Back in June, we were all trying to figure out if Zuckerberg was actually lost in space, but possibly not. I think the metaverse is still not fully understood, but it's more than just virtual reality. It's more than just a new gaming platform. I think decades from now, if we look back, we probably will think about this as a persistent, synchronous, concurrent collaboration environment of wide interoperability. I think it'll allow us the physical and virtual worlds to merge. I think it'll become a destination for where we do payments, entertainment, buying of consumer goods, even maybe healthcare, and so I think this now will create probably the largest audience and monetization of that audience in the future. So hopefully this will create this ability to do more virtual workspaces and virtual collaboration spaces. But this is clearly in the future. I mean, the metaverse will not be a single platform. It'll be a collection of technologies, protocols, companies that'll have to come together to rewrite how collaboration happens and kind of rewrite the next internet a protocol, if you will. So it's future vision for sure. But it certainly is a paradigm we need to keep an eye on moving forward. Next slide, when we turn over to Surajit, talk a little bit about the technology trends.
You want to go on mute? Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Frank. Thanks. So I'm going to essentially talk about. Let me turn off your speaker. Okay, so I can bump it up here, Frank. Sorry about that. Yeah, so essentially what I'm going to do is, while the metaverse is, still I think many years out, we're starting to see some evolution of how AI and 5G are going to impact the future. So I'm going to talk about some things that we are already seeing on the ground. Subsequently, I'm going to talk about a few things which we are beginning to see our clients act on, some of the journeys we are part of as well. So starting off with AI and blockchain, the technology today is there where if you take a video stream or an audio stream, AI can recognize what program is playing or what song is playing. So you already have that technology. So Shazam is pretty popular for people who have used Siri to determine what song is playing. We know how well it works, right? It's almost flawless. So what we are seeing right now in the market is on the back of the technology, solutions around media monitoring, and I'll explain what that is. So essentially, imagine video stream, live video stream, running all day and getting processed real time to determine which programs are playing, what's the topic, which ads are playing, what's the messaging for the product, and then being able to offer all of that up so that advertisers get to know, and advertising is just one use case, get to know when exactly their stuff is getting aired. So they don't need to rely on trafficking information that comes a day late. They can also get to know, how their competitors' spots are aligned, what's their messaging, right? So this whole host of media monitoring solutions that are evolving on the back of the ability that AI has in terms of being able to recognize content. And if you think about this is also applicable for radio. It's not just video. In terms of content generation, this technology is still evolving, but I think it's rapidly maturing, and we're going to start seeing mainstream application of this in the next couple of years. Essentially, the ability on the part of AI to go ahead and really understand data points and be able to build out a narrative that's human friendly. That's really what's at the core of this. So natural language generation is already being looked at for generating, weather reports. So someone just doesn't, read out the numbers that are there on the screen, but AI generates the narrative, and sometimes it can be made more insightful, made contextual, depending on how much information is made available to the AI engine. Then when it comes to gaming, real time, generating commentary that the audience can follow along, whether it's through closed captioning or through audio. So those are some of the things that we are starting to see. Moving to personalization, I mean, we all, are getting very personalized, Netflix home screens or Amazon Prime home screens, right? Sometime back, I rented an Airbnb, and the previous guest hadn't really logged out for Netflix, and when I looked at their screen, it was like drastically different from what I see, right? So that's the extent of personalization that we have, and it's going to get even more and more fine-tuned. So building recommendation engines is going to become really a part of any content publisher or deliveries business is going to care about it, right? There's going to be a focus area, and we've done some work around that for clients. Today a lot of manual work goes in when it comes to the trafficking of ads. So agency instructions come all through the day to networks, and then ad ops team, actually, interpret those instructions manually, and then they adjust trafficking instructions based on that. So we are seeing increasingly that's getting automated. There's going to be certain human intervention always necessary, till the technology matures, but we're starting to see that make an impact already. Now, moving slightly away from AI for a bit, and thinking about blockchain, right? I mean, that's a technology which was there's a lot of hype around it a few years back, and then I wouldn't say the technology has died out, but the hype definitely has gone down. So now, over the course of the last few years, we are starting to see what are sustainable and meaningful, deployments of the technology that can make a real difference. One of the solutions, around blockchain is, we help build this for a client, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. Essentially, with third-party cookies going away, advertisers are going to want to know, more about their target audience's behaviors based on a collection of first-party data that's, siloed within different businesses, right? So there are platforms which are being built on top of blockchain, which allows first-party data to be, shared in an anonymous and trusted manner. Blockchain is the vehicle which provides the trust element, and this allows for ecosystem where first-party data comes together from various participants and provides benefits to all advertisers. And so that's one area where we're seeing blockchain actually making a difference. Blockchain is also being considered for building what is called content ledger. So as an artist, you can use blockchain timestamps to be able to go ahead and claim authorship or ownership of an asset. We're also seeing blockchain being used for metadata for the content. As metadata for content gets changed through the life cycle of the content as it traverses from one delivery platform to another. So being able to keep a track as the author of that or the owner of that asset. So moving on to 5G. Now, I'll be honest, till about a couple of years, it wasn't really apparent to me as to how 5G would revolutionize the media industry. And over a period of time, I realized that the reason for that is that for it not being apparent is because it's going to dramatically disrupt. It's going to turn the industry upside down to some. It has the potential rather to turn the industry on its head. So we'll start off with some things which we are starting to see. So on the content production side, we are starting to see. Again, this has been precipitated by the pandemic. So we're starting to see interest in exploring 5G for remote production. So once the shoot has happened in the studio, typically there is a 3-week lag in terms of the production of that getting completed. And with 5G, you can have really remote production teams who can use the bandwidth to get the content transferred from the studio. They don't need to be co-located. You can have multiple such remote production teams, and then the three-week cycle can be squeezed down to a week. We're starting to see some of that with new studios, based primarily out of Asia, because that's where new infrastructure is getting deployed as new studios are being set up. Staying on the studio, element. If you think about studio setup, there's a lot of equipment that needs to be cabled. That's how it's done today. It's cabled, and you have multiple sections of the studio which needs to be, again, cabled for, high-speed data to be transferred. So that automatically means significant lead time in terms of being able to do the setup, as well as it means that you are only able to have so much throughput with your, the studio assets that you have access to. Right now, with 5G coming in, you can go ahead and production houses can go ahead and really sign up for high-speed bandwidth, on a slice of the network, which will allow all of that interconnectivity to happen over 5G. There's going to be obviously some equipment upgrades that will need to happen, and we're already starting to see some of that. In fact, we have some top hardware companies in the world who have not produced any media equipment starting to get into that space because they see that as a new area for themselves. So studio setup time is going to go down. Ad hoc setups are going to be possible. You're going to get more content produced with the same number of studios that you have. And then using 5G, and we're not there yet. You don't necessarily need to have a lot of the rig operators in the studio. So some of the heavy stuff you can operate remotely, and that's going to lead to a new class of jobs on the production side. Coming to stadium experience, and this is where it really gets disruptive. So the lines, I think the simplest way to understand the stadium experience, how it's going to get transformed, is that the lines between your experience watching at home vis-a-vis watching live is going to get blurred. So you're going to start seeing a lot of additional content that's supplementary to what you're watching live show up on your screens. And AT&T is already starting to deploy some of that. And you're going to also see interesting content getting created by the franchises. So franchises who have never really made money out of content, they're going to start producing content because they're going to be able to overlay a certain action that's happened on the field with additional material they have, which they could go ahead and get their players to enact and have ready, and bundle it together and sell it as a premium, either to you directly as the fan, or syndicate that to a traditional media company. So that's where again the lines between franchises / teams and media companies is going to get blurred. Pretty dramatic shift if you think about it. You will also get into immersive ads. Frank talked about authenticity. So we already start to see 360 ads. I'll take an example of authenticity. So if you see the ad of a resort, right? Obviously they're always going to show you what it looks good, right? The best part of the resort, right? But think about that made available to you in 360 video. So you can obviously turn around and see, the not so great parts, and hopefully that's going to be, incentive enough for the vacation businesses to be able to, provide better properties, right? So there's going to be more authentic experience. Google has already launched some of the AR, the AR video platform. I think it's being used mostly where things are very personalized in terms of makeup. You could go ahead and see your favorite artist go ahead and try on some makeup, and automatically the makeup will be applied on you virtually, and you could see yourself in the same makeup. So that's going to really get I think proliferated with 5G coming in. Frank talked about everyone's a content creator, right? So obviously with 5G, the ability to go ahead and upload videos real time at 100 times the speed, arguably you're going to have a lot of new content getting created by people like folks who are, for example, getting discovered today on Instagram or YouTube as artists, right? They're emerging, they're getting discovered, they establish themselves. So their entire artist life cycle in terms of the preliminary phase, I think we're going to see more and more artists getting discovered that way, as there's an explosion of the creativity. Virtual learning is going to stay. So even post-COVID, it's going to remain. And I think with 5G, what universities are going to look at is really providing some of the best, teachers be able to go ahead and reach out to a wider student base than they are able to today because of doing it purely physically. And again, 5G is going to enable a lot of the immersive, mixed reality content that's going to be, still provide the same effective educational value. Benefit for the students in terms of being able to get the best professors. Benefit for universities being able to do more with fewer, top quality educators. So those are things which we project are going to happen. In terms of in-car entertainment, having the 5G bandwidth and the low latency, you're going to start seeing behavioral changes in terms of people watching videos without needing to download, pre-download, and then advertisers being able to be aware of locations and be able to provide location-specific ads. So you're going to start seeing some of that. Now, moving on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so these are some quick examples. I'll move forward in the interest of time. So, to be able to use 5G, it's almost an imperative that you have to have everything on the cloud. So we've, really helped a large broadcasting company move all of their applications over to AWS. We've also, helped them consolidate DevOps, tooling, and then really, have 100% automation of DevOps. For a professional learning company, we've built a cloud-based recommendation engine. We should go ahead and provide personalized content and products to their learners. Again, very fast delivery, 3 months, concept to production, using the power of the cloud and how AI has matured. We've gone ahead and built this audience data sharing platform called BlogGraph. It's out there. It's an industry initiative, so you could look it up. For a streaming music company, we are helping them take advantage of the bidirectional data that they get, from the InCar Entertainment systems, and be able to determine consumer behavior, what listening habits, and be able to sell additional products to the same customer base. For a network broadcasting company, we have gone ahead and built an OTT solution which uses AI's ability to recognize video content, in-depth recognition of video content, and be able to go ahead and search for clips and be able to reuse that for new content production. So that's something we did for another broadcast company. For one of the largest online advertising companies in the world, we have used AI to go ahead and help curate ads in terms of being able to pull additional information that's available out there, contextualizing the ads for the benefit of the target audience. Over to you, Frank.
Great, thanks, Surajit. Well, if we can go to the summer side. So just bringing it all back together. So we talked about a lot of different topics today. I think first, really understanding the consumption side. Broadcasters will continue to have to evolve the way they distribute, create content to a generation of new viewers, and really think about multi-device engagement and more consumable content. Media outlets will have to balance content costs and ad tolerance, and advertisers will really need to think about more highly relevant and personalized advertising. A lot's been done there, but I think hyper-personalization will really become possible with the application of AI, as Surajit was mentioning. The streaming services, there's been a proliferation of these platforms now. There will have to be some natural aggregation, and I think you'll see the streamers now move into adjacency, new areas such as gaming and more immersive applications as well. Social media networks are here to stay. They'll continue to be a critical source of content and news, and I think it's be up to the governance to come in around building higher quality, building trust, and really addressing data privacy concerns, which is still very much topical these days. Content creators will continue to emerge as really the primary brand advocacy and distribution channels. You'll continue to see these audience creations being the new distribution channels for content. And as we just heard, the advances in 5G and AI technologies really will continue to evolve the way we engage and interact with content. So final slide, if you would love to get into the conversations here, there's some contact information on the next slide, Ron. If you Surajit and I'd be happy to engage in some further discussions around this. Hopefully you enjoyed the session today. Thank you, Ron, and back over to you.